The accountant's verdict. A $500,000 reckoning. 32. A certified public accountant in Omaha, Nebraska. For years, my life was a ledger of sacrifices. Every dollar carefully allocated, every expenditure justified, all for the sake of the family I thought I was protecting. My personal future was a deferred entry, constantly pushed back by the immediate, desperate needs of the Vances. Hospital bills for my father, Harold's complex heart surgery, my sister Sienna's perpetually accruing college tuition, a new roof, a sturdy, unyielding monument to my hard-earned cash after a brutal Nebraska storm. I even turned down the chance of a lifetime, a senior role in a high-profile Chicago firm, a real opportunity to climb and finally breathe. I said no, anchoring myself to Omaha, convinced that leaving felt like betrayal. At our family dinner table, the one I had personally paid to refinish last year, my father cleared his throat. His voice, usually warm, was firm, decisive, and cold. "We've decided," he announced, looking down at his plate. "The house, the savings, everything goes to Sienna. She deserves it for her business dreams." Minimized, my stomach twisted, a sudden, violent knot of disbelief and pain. My mother Margaret nodded, her eyes fixed somewhere between the silverware and the ceiling, deliberately avoiding my gaze. "She's got big plans," she murmured, her tone final, as if my years of sacrifice were nothing more than a minor administrative task. Unless I gripped my crystal water glass, my knuckles white against the heavy, expensive lead. "She deserves it." The words hit me like a physical punch. All those late nights balancing their tangled credit card books, every weekend spent fixing their financial messes, every dollar I'd ever sent, erased. They didn't see me. They didn't see the real anchor holding their life together. They thought I'd keep playing the dutiful daughter, silently pouring my paychecks into their needs. I wanted to scream, to smash the expensive glass and demand an accounting of my worth. But my silence burned louder, heavier. My heart hammered in my chest as I stared at that refinished table. The weight of their betrayal was the weight of years. They'd taken everything I gave and handed the reward to the one who took the most. Something quiet, cold, and irreversible snapped in me that night. My mind drifted back to the transactions, the quantifiable cost of my loyalty. 5 years ago, Dad's unexpected heart surgery landed us with a staggering $150,000 bill. Mom called me past midnight, her voice brittle with panic. They had no way to pay the deductible, no savings, no plan. I sent the money by morning, draining every cent of my Chicago savings account. No weekend trips, no new furniture, just the quiet, sterile receipt of the wire transfer. Dad gave me a brief, grateful glance when he left the hospital, but he never spoke of it again. I told myself it kept him breathing, and that was enough. Sienna's tuition was the next endless drain. She swore a business degree would launch her into a grand entrepreneurial life, a future so bright it justified any expense. I covered $10,000 a year for 4 years, plus her apartment security deposits and startup capital. My own rent and car payments barely fit my budget, forcing me into high-pressure contract work on the side. I made it work, believing in the idea of her success. But Sienna stumbled through classes, partied more than she studied, and barely graduated. Her string of failed ventures, a bespoke dog-walking app, a fast-casual Peruvian food truck, ate up capital faster than I could earn it. But I stayed silent, signing checks to keep her dreams and my parents' delusional pride alive. 2 summers ago, a massive storm tore through Omaha, shredding the family home's roof. Mom pleaded over the phone, saying they'd lose the house if they couldn't secure immediate repairs. I paid the $80,000 repair bill, taking on extra hours and 2 new accounting clients just to scrape it together. I still saw that dark new roof when I drove by, a heavy, constant marker of what I gave. The deepest, most agonizing cut was Chicago. The senior accountant position, $185,000 a year, a clear partnership track, the chance to finally build something for me. I said no. Leaving felt like abandoning a post, like betraying the fragile financial stability I'd constructed. Each sacrifice stacked like stones on my chest. Late nights at my desk, the numbers blurring, I often wondered when I would finally get to breathe for myself. Yet, they never noticed. Sienna would sweep in, spinning glamorous, vague tales of her next big idea, full of buzzwords and zero execution. While I quietly footed the repair bills and paid off their escalating credit card debt, Mom and Dad cheered her vision. I didn't want applause, just a single moment of recognition. Instead, I got their silence, punctuated by the shocking declaration of the inheritance. The math told a harsh, undeniable truth. I had given hundreds of thousands for survival and repair, while Sienna had burned their money, and mine, on designer clothes, luxury trips, and failed ideas. I'd seen the receipts when Mom handed me their tangled credit card statements to sort. I never said a word, just kept paying. My apartment stayed bare, my savings shrank, but I was conditioned to believe family meant giving until it stung. I had let go of my career, my peace, my financial security, all for them. They leaned on me, expecting I would always carry the weight. Sienna never offered a cent. She arrived with new accessories, boasting about investor meetings, while I covered their utility shutoff notices. Mom and Dad called her their dreamer, their star. I was just the one who made it possible. Those years of giving had hollowed me out, leaving my future a dwindling, fading entry in a barren ledger. I wasn't fully angry then, but the burden of their colossal indifference grew heavier, colder. I had built their world brick by careful brick, only to see they'd never valued the foundation. I couldn't keep giving everything for nothing. That night, their faces around the table snapped into cold, sharp focus. I sat in the Omaha dining room, the weight of my sacrifices shifting from my chest to my spine, stealing my resolve. "We've made up our minds," Harold said again, his voice cutting through the silence. "The house and the savings, they're going to Sienna. She deserves it for her dreams." My breath caught. My fingers tightened on the crumpled napkin. My years of work, my entire adult life's earnings, were being handed over to fund Sienna's latest fantasy. Sienna leaned back, a smug glint in her eyes, already crowned. "Make something?" I asked, my voice low and dangerously even. "I held this family together, but you don't see it." Sienna spoke up, her voice bright and sharp with entitlement. "I've got plans in motion, Clara. This is my shot." She didn't even glance my way. Margaret reached out, touching Sienna's arm. "We're behind you," she said warmly, her eyes still carefully avoiding mine. The air felt thick, pressing against my chest. They kept talking, their voices buzzing about Sienna's potential, her vague, half-baked ventures. Each word stung, carving deeper into my extinguished loyalty. I had believed family meant standing together, but they had left me carrying the load alone, then rewarded the freeloader. I shoved my chair back, the noise sharp against their chatter. "I need a moment," I said, my voice low and tight. They barely noticed. Sienna kept spinning her plans. Margaret kept smiling. Harold kept nodding. I stepped onto the porch. The cold Nebraska night bit at my skin. Their words, "She deserves it," rang in my head. I'd given everything, and they'd given me nothing. I wasn't their anchor anymore. I was their former anchor. The quiet break I'd felt earlier now became a chasm. I spent the next 2 weeks not just rejecting their calls, but meticulously constructing a forensic audit file. My apartment, usually neat to the point of sterility, became a war room of financial documents. I calculated the total. The amount I had spent was closer to $487,000, including lost interest and opportunity cost. I had spent nearly $500,000 keeping them solvent, and my reward was being erased. The true revelation came when I analyzed the high-interest business loan Sienna had taken out against the house. Using my access to proprietary public records databases, the kind of tools that separate a standard bookkeeper from a certified professional, I found the details. Sienna hadn't just used the house as collateral, she had manipulated the appraisal and forged Harold's signature on a key guarantee document, claiming the loan was for a legitimate, high-growth venture. The actual funds had vanished into personal spending, a luxury lease on a sports car, a down payment on a flashy condo in a different state, and a massive investment into a dubious cryptocurrency scheme that had already gone bust. The loan was not merely an aggressive financial move, it was bank fraud. The fine print on the loan documents revealed that Harold and Margaret were implicitly liable. If the bank foreclosed, they wouldn't just lose the house, they would be subject to a civil fraud lawsuit for misrepresenting their assets and, potentially, criminal charges related to the manipulated guarantee. My parents knew on some level what Sienna was, but this audit proved they had actively chosen to shield her and reward her recklessness, assuming I, the anchor, would always bear the weight of the wreckage. My revenge was no longer about money. It was about forcing accountability for their decades of moral negligence. After the dinner, the storm of rumors began. I met Carol, my sharp, blunt friend, at a downtown coffee shop. "Terminated about the dinner," Carol said, her face tense as she slid into the booth. "But there's something you need to know about Sienna. She's racked up massive debt, and it's tied directly to your parents' house." I drove straight to Mom and Dad's house and confronted Margaret with the bank notice confirming Sienna's high-interest, fraudulently secured business loan. "Ambitious?" I stepped closer, my voice rising. "She's risking everything you have. Why do you keep defending her?" "She's trying to build something, Clara. You're strong. You always manage. Sienna needs us." "Sibera could take the house, Mom," I pressed. "Did you even check?" She faltered, gripping the counter. "We trusted her," she said, almost a whisper. I turned to leave, my voice low and final. "You chose her, but she's the one sinking you." I walked out, my resolve hardening. I was done cleaning up their mess. A month later, Margaret texted, "The house payment is due. The amount is now higher. Please help." Bankers back 3 words, a blade of finality cutting through years of obligation. That's not my responsibility. Suppressing the phone calls began immediately, relentless and demanding. Margaret's soft pleas, Harold's stern demands, Sienna's entitled accusations. Each unanswered ring was a brick in the wall I'd built around my peace. A sharp, insistent knock echoed. I opened the door to find Harold, Margaret, and Sienna standing there. "We're out of time," Margaret said, her voice cracking. "The bank will take the house if you don't help." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Sienna dug this hole. Let her climb out." Sienna's eyes flared with panicked rage. "You're betraying us! We're your family, and you're just walking away!" I let out a bitter laugh. "Betraying you? I've carried this family for years. Every bill, every crisis, every sacrifice. And you handed the reward to her." Harold moved forward. "This isn't who we raised. You're letting us fall apart." "I've given enough," I said, locking eyes with Sienna. "Your mess, your problem." Margaret's voice broke. "Please, just this once. We're your family." "Family doesn't mean I'm your bank," I said, my voice firm. "I'm done." Sienna lunged, her voice rising to a frantic pitch. "You think you're better than us? You'll regret this when we lose everything." "No, Sienna," I said, my words deliberate, unwavering. You'll regret gambling their home on your schemes." Harold's face hardened. "You're choosing yourself over us," he said, the verdict delivered. I nodded, unapologetic. "Yes," I said. "For the first time, I am." I closed the door, the click echoing in the stillness. Their muffled voices, pleading and accusing, lingered outside. The next week, Sienna turned the narrative into a full financial campaign against me. Her posts, venomous and full of twisted lies, accused me of destroying their lives out of professional jealousy. At my accounting firm, the whispers grew into professional judgment. My manager, Mr. Chen, called me into his office, citing concerns about stability and family ethics. He told me he was putting me on unpaid leave. "Mr. Chen," I said, my voice measured, "I haven't caused instability. I've only refused to pay for a criminal act." I slid the sealed summary of Sienna's bank fraud, the forged signature, and the potential civil liability facing Harold and Margaret across his desk. "This is not a family squabble," I finished. "This is a felony, and I am the only one who didn't participate. You can fire me, but my name will be the cleanest thing to come out of this whole Nebraska mess." Mr. Chen, shocked by the scope of the fraud, didn't fire me. He looked up, a new respect dawning. "Go resolve this, Clara. Take the time you need." Meanwhile, the damage had reached my remaining clients. A major contract was curtailed. Harold's formal email came next. "Your actions are tearing us apart. People in town are calling us desperate because of you." Their accusations stung, but my resolve hardened. I would fight with the numbers. A few days later, they marched into my office, the aggressive, final invasion. "We're here to talk sense into you," Margaret said, clutching a folder. I leaned back, calm, professional. "I'm not ignoring you. I'm done fixing your problems." Harold stepped between us. "We're losing everything, and you're sitting here unmoved." "I'm unmoved because I've given enough," I said, my voice steady. "Sienna made her choices. She needs to own them." I didn't argue about the house. I argued about the law. I pulled out my closed manila envelope containing my audit summary. "Throttle," I demanded. "Tell Mom and Dad exactly where the $350,000 went. Not the startup capital, the fraud money." She flinched. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I do," I countered. "I know about the forged signature on the guarantee document. The bank isn't just taking the house, Harold. They're preparing a civil lawsuit for bank fraud. And since you shielded her, you will both be named as co-defendants. You are about to lose your retirement savings and possibly face criminal investigation, all because you refused to audit your own family." Harold's authority evaporated. Margaret gasped. Sienna looked utterly panicked. "You have two options," I said, my voice now firm. "One, you continue to defend Sienna. You all go down together, ruined publicly and criminally. Two, you sign a legal declaration right now stating that Sienna acted alone, that the forgery was hers, and you formally disavow any knowledge of the fraudulent loan. I will then present this to the bank's legal team, and I will testify that you were the victims of your daughter's criminal deceit." I placed the pre-drafted legal declaration on the desk. Harold stared at the paper, then at the daughter he had cherished, then back at me. He realized his dreamer was a criminal, and his dutiful support was his only chance. "You'll save us?" Margaret whispered. "I will save you from jail, Mom," I said, the words cutting deep. "But I will not save the house. The house is the price for your blindness." Sienna screamed, lunging across the desk. "You snake! You planned this! You want to see us homeless!" "I want you to face a felony charge," I corrected, looking at the parents. Harold grabbed the pen. His hand was shaking uncontrollably, but he signed the declaration, a final, irreversible betrayal of his favorite daughter. Margaret quickly signed beneath him, terrified. "You're choosing yourself over us," Harold mumbled, his voice broken. "Yes," I said, "and I'm choosing justice over your false loyalty." They left, broken and silent. Sienna walked out of the office a pariah, not just in Omaha, but facing a major legal battle initiated by a bank that now had a signed admission of guilt. The house was lost, foreclosed upon 2 weeks later. Local family loses home to foreclosure following business debt crisis. The article detailed the fraudulent business loan and mentioned Sienna Vance had left the state to avoid civil proceedings. Sienna's social media feed went permanently dark. The apologies from my clients and neighbors were immediate and profuse. Mr. Chen reinstated my position, offering a raise and a public apology for doubting my stability. Modifying, Margaret eventually called. "Sienna never contacted us," she said, her voice thin. I replied. "And you?" she asked. Policing. "I'm who I've always been, Mom, an accountant. I just balanced the ledger." Harold never called. His silence was the ultimate admission that his pride had been shattered by my logic. I drove to the old house one last time before the bank auction. I looked at the sturdy, dark roof I had paid for. Then, I pulled out my phone and deleted every financial record related to the Vances, purging the memory of their debt from my personal ledger forever. I drove away, heading toward a new future in a clean, quiet financial world I had built for myself. My time, my money, and my life were finally, gloriously unburdened. The accountant's verdict was final.